Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I've got filmmaker Rob Campoy with me. Hey, Rob.
Hi, Jeff.
All right, and we are in person, which is kind of a fun change of pace. A lot of times it's on Zoom these days, but we're in person, so I normally give that Zoom disclaimer that if you don't like the audio quality, blame Zoom. So now if you don't like the audio quality, blame Blue microphones, I think.
I had to come to the lair, man.
Had to come in person, exactly. All right, so I'm excited to have Rob here because his short film, A Face on the Ceiling, actually holds a special spot in my heart. You know what I'm going to name?
I do.
I do. He submitted it to Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2021 as a short film horror in that category and took home the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Short Film Horror. But more importantly, he won the award from my 14-year-old daughter who watched. She loves horror, so I made her watch it with me. And as soon as it finished, she looked over at me and said, "Pretty spiff." So Rob won the Pretty Spiff Award from a 14-year-old, which means it actually really is a really good.
My greatest honor.
She has very good taste, I'll tell you that.
My greatest honor, and I want, quote, Pretty Spiff.
Pretty Spiff. Maybe it can go on the DVD someday.
Yeah. I want every poster from now on.
Yeah. And more exciting, maybe even more exciting than Pretty Spiff, is the fact that A Face on the Ceiling is going to be in Season 6 of the Discover Indie Film TV series. So, you should, upon listening to this, it might even be out by then. Probably in September it'll come out. But go to Amazon Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, and go to Season 6 and enjoy a whole season of amazing short films. Season 6, so there's 5 previous seasons, 10 episodes each. They average about half an hour. And it's just films handpicked from the festival circuit. So that's my pitch. Go to Prime Video and watch it. See Rob's film as well. And now we're just going to talk about Rob and his career. So, sir, I already teased it. So you know my first question is going to be, what inspired you to get into film?
Super loaded question. So many things I can say to that. I think I come from the school of as long as I can remember, that camp. I remember at a very young age, I think it was like 5 or 6 or something, but we went to see, my family took me to see, I think it was Gone with the Wind, I think it must have been at the Egyptian, because I remember the theater being massive. Of course, when you're
maybe
5,
Cinerama Dome or LA local, so some really good retro theaters.
Yeah, I don't think it was Cinerama because I remember there being tiers, not balconies, and I don't think Cinerama has quite the balconies that Egyptian has. And I remember looking back and just seeing all these layers of balconies and being like, "What on earth is this?" And so it wasn't necessarily the movie. I mean, I was enthralled by the movie, but it was the fact that everyone was there to see this thing. I think I, fell asleep because I was 5 and it was a long movie. I remember there was an intermission and I was like, why are they doing this? But it was a cool thing. I mean, for some reason that's indelibly left in my memory.
Well, that's a major chunk of cinematic history to see.
Yeah.
What not a lot of people... Hopefully a lot of people listening know, but that is the most successful film of all time. I believe if you inflation adjust the box office, it puts Avatar to shame or whatever is number 2. Yeah. And a long, sprawling film about the Civil War in the South, I guess, Reconstruction.
With a raw production, you know what I mean? A very difficult production. If you're not aware of that, everyone listening should go and read about that. It'll, for some, make you never want to make movies. For crazy people like us, make us go, sign me up.
So as a kid, was it the spectacle of it?
It was definitely a spectacle. That, if I remember correctly, it was an anniversary or something. So it wasn't just a couple people in the theater. Everyone was in suits and dresses, and the theater was packed, to the gills. And so it was seeing all these people come out. You're sitting, cramped next to all these people, and everyone's laughing at the same time. Everyone's crying at the same time, all that kind of stuff. I mean, who wouldn't be enthralled by that? You know what I mean?
For sure. Super impactful.
I mean, there's a reason that so many filmmakers wax poetic about this, and they're right to do so, because it leaves a lasting impression.
So how did it manifest after that? Were you just into movies? Were you watching stuff on local TV all you could, or?
I became pretty obsessed, yeah. And then I remember when I was 7 or 8, my mom went out for date night, and so my friend and I were having a sleepover, and we had like, VHS at the time, which for the kids is, it's cassette tape for video. And so we had like levels on the shelves, and the high up ones were the R-rated and PG-13, and so we took a chair the second the door closed, and we grabbed just a handful of whatever was at the top shelf. And the nanny didn't, she was downstairs unaware, and we put in whatever we found, and the first thing we put in was Boogie Nights. And so 7 or 8, I saw Boogie Nights, and I didn't understand it necessarily, but I was like, whatever the fuck that is, sign me up. I was just like, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I feel like I have to make a connection between Gone with the Wind and Boogie Nights, and that both are sprawling, capturing a time. And yet they could not be more different. And yet the odds of you seeing Boogie Nights like that, my God.
We had no idea what we grabbed. And I think the other one was like Bliss, which was like basically a softcore porn. But so Boogie Nights was the one that...
Yeah, so that top shelf was killer.
Someone was doing some weird shit.
Mom didn't have it hidden in a drawer.
I mean, it's weird because she was engaged to a producer at the time. So a lot of them were like screeners. So I guess VHS screeners. So I'm not sure that Bliss was up for any award. If anyone who worked on Bliss is listening to this, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I think there was Bliss and Boogie Nights. I forget, we grabbed 3. I forget what the third one was, but the only one that left the impression was Boogie Nights. And so seeing that made a huge impression on an impressionable young mind. And then I was lucky, I'm born and raised in LA, and even though I always talk about how LA is not just a movie town, we have lawyers and doctors and restaurants, there are people of all walks here. But I'm still lucky to have grown up in LA to want to do this, in the sense that I was surrounded by people who love movies. And so it became something I was obsessed with at a young age, and a very healthy addiction ever since. And
did you get your hands on a video camera, like one of those?
I got my hands on a mini DV camera. I was, when you're that young, you're like copying sort of everything everyone else does. But it was shooting whatever we could with, what we thought was good quality, which was terrible quality mini DV cam. But I also remember my uncle would come into town. He lived in Santa Barbara, and he would sleep on our couch, or I guess bedroom, because he would review movies and music for the Los Angeles Times. And he took me to a video store that's still there called Cinephile, in Santa Monica adjacent.
And it's right next to the New Art, the one next to the New Art.
Yeah. And that place changed my life, because they have everything on the shelves by director in one part of it. It's a very small store. But so, at a very young age, probably around 8 or 9, finding Boogie Nights, and then, getting into Quentin Tarantino and Scorsese. And like, you go back and you hear that Tarantino said he liked this director. So then you go and find all those directors, and that director said they like this director. And so you just keep going back. So that was probably the most important thing in my life at the time. Was like every couple days going and returning the 3 movies and picking up 3 more, and finding new directors and old directors and weird directors and foreign directors, and so yeah, and then shooting stuff with a mini DV cam and so on and so forth.
And it's huge that thanks to Cinephile, thanks to a video rental store, you keyed in on the director as auteur thing, because I think most of us, when we're young, we just will grab all the films of the same like lead actor or actress,
sure,
and we'll be like, oh, I'm into whatever film, I will.
Yeah.
But there's always that transition, I think, for people who are cinephiles. When you guys, no, I want to follow the directors, because that's the through line of quality.
Yeah. At a very young age, I was like, I want to be a director. That's it. You know what I mean?
Huge. And you had a camera to play with, which is huge too, I think.
We didn't have a ton. I think we had like little hand-me-down ones in here and there. I don't think anything's left from them. I mean, I also was like writing really young because I remember seeing probably younger than the Boogie Nights thing, probably younger than 8. I remember seeing a Tupac picture book. It was like this massive gold book, and in one of the pages, like we were at Barnes and Noble or something, and I'm flipping through it, and in one of the pages was a photo of like a yellow pad page that Tupac had written a script or like a page from a script while he was in prison. And so I remember reading that and not understanding what it was, and then like, you know, seeing the blurb that said it was a screenplay thing, blah, blah. And so, you know, at like 9, I started copying that and trying to write scripts on yellow legal pads. And I think my mom still has some failed attempts of like 3-page scripts and stuff like that. So I was like doing that as early as I could. And still to this day, screenwriting is my very, as I say, very healthy obsession.
Yeah.
These are very healthy addictions.
And it's great to focus your creativity onto the page at that age, for sure. Did you discover, I mean, another blessing of growing up in LA, I think, is there's a handful of indie bookstores that have screenplays.
Oh, yeah.
Like most people never see a screenplay, never see screenplay format.
Yeah. I became obsessed with screenplay format and like getting it down professionally, like young, like 13, 14 maybe, or even younger. I think so I do know about those bookstores. I knew about them in my teens, probably not at 9, probably as I was getting into 13 and 14. And I remember, you know, also going online and finding screenplays. That's when people started putting them online and understanding the format and understanding how they're written, trying to make my action lines shorter, which is, I think, a lifelong struggle. And yeah, I remember being obsessed with that. But we also had, when I was 13, I think, I was at an all-boys school in the Valley that the English teacher had everyone for a project go make a movie in groups of 4 or 5. And then he had like these Academy Awards. And so a group of friends and I went and we made a film, and so there was a couple of us who were into movies. I don't think most kids even at that time were big into movies or big into screenwriting, and I remember a couple of my friends at that time were. And so it was like in the 90s, it was all coffee shops, you know, we were all writing scenes that took place between 2 people in a coffee shop. And then I remember Michael Mann's Collateral came out, and so we were all writing Hitman movies, you know what I mean? It was like whatever we were inspired by was what we were trying to emulate.
But you answered a question that I was going to ask, which was, in school, were there inspirations? So you were actually lucky to be, maybe not lucky, maybe
not a ton, but
your mom might have intentionally put you in a school that had that kind of program.
It wasn't even a program. It was just this English teacher. I have such a, like, you know, all these memories from childhood are sort of like my only memories from childhood that pertain to film. But so that's all I remember is that aspect of it. It wasn't a special class. It was like literally just in the English class. He was like, you know, go off and make a movie. And I remember, you know, I think only like 1 or 2 of the other people in my group were into the whole conceit of making this movie. And so they sort of like, the rest of them left it to us. They were like, you guys write the script, direct, do whatever you want, and we'll just like be in it. And I was like, okay. And I think we basically just like ripped off Guy Ritchie's Snatch. And we just did, you know, like almost direct scenes, not the same dialogue. So, you know, it was very impressionable young minds doing it. But I mean, from what I remember, I don't think my mom still has it. She might have it somewhere. But from what I remember, it was like, you know, we put our all into this thing. We put our damnedest. You know what I mean?
And I am fully willing to say that shot remakes, a lot of people sometimes make fun of themselves for having done that as a kid. That teaches you so much because you're learning how that filmmaker got to the edit, right? And you're seeing it from start to finish is so different than just watching the film.
100%. It was. I wouldn't say it's a shot for shot remake, but what I would say is that one thing I remember being a takeaway is transitions. You know what I mean? Like musical transitions, especially. How to use music in a movie. And I as you know, I like to make music as well. So I like the notion of scoring movies, but when you hear a great song and you're like, Guy Ritchie uses songs so well, and Scorsese uses songs, PTA, Quentin Tarantino, all these guys use songs, like popular music in their movies so well that it's sort of hard not to. A lot of the stuff that I've been writing recently, I've finally started putting the songs that I want in the script, even though I know they'll probably never end up being in the movie if they're ever made. And Tess and I always joke how it's, for a guy who wants to score his movies, you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot because you're going to use all these popular songs,
Yeah, and you're getting married to... I remember a story, it could be true, that Tarantino gave the advice that you should always, if there's a song you want in your film, put a different song in the screenplay.
Yeah.
So that when you go to the film, you say, well, you're my backup song, but I'm interested. And then because if you're in the script, then they'll try to squeeze all the money they can out of you.
Sure. Recently I've started doing it because I've started writing more like very darkly satirical stuff, whereas before I was writing like very serious dramatic stuff, which I'm not averse to. I love those kinds of movies. But so with those, I think it's more apt to use a score as opposed to popular music. And then with like darkly satirical, it's just too fun not to. And so I'll send it, all my scripts when I finish them. I don't really send them out to anyone but my friends and family. And so this group of like 5 or 6 people that I send it to, I've now started sending the playlists that I write along to as well with exact songs. So I'm like, as much as it can be a movie to you, till the day I get the 60 million to make it. I hope you enjoy the movie,
That is cool. And people used to send CDs with scripts sometimes. And it's nice that you can do a playlist instead.
Yeah.
All right, well, jumping back, that English class, was there stuff in high school too you got to do, or were you still on your own? Did your film passion, I'm looking for where you really started. Was it college you started
making
stuff?
Yeah. Oh, it was, at a young age I was making stuff. Yeah. I was editing stuff together. I was, shooting as much as I could. I was writing. I was always focused on writing features because I'm, delusional. But I delusional that one day they'll get made. But I also wrote shorts that, we'd shoot bits and pieces, and then we couldn't get everyone together again for day 8, and they got bored of it and all that stuff. But I was definitely shooting as much as I could. And then in college I went to NIFA, mainly because I just wanted a place to go to talk to people about movies, because I love movies. So I didn't really apply anywhere. I went to NIFA first year in LA, which was great because most of our favorite directors likely our favorite directors never went to film school. I don't think it's necessary at all. I missed enough class to prove that notion, but you get to play with the gear. You get to play with the equipment, which you could do on set as well. But if you're, I worked as a second AC for a while, and when you're a second AC, it's not like I'm touching the camera. I'm, clapping, and I'm taking notes, and I'm measuring, and what I mean? And I'm arranging cases in an L shape, what I mean? So it's not hands-on experience. So that's a good aspect of it. And then NIFA was cool. I got to shoot a small, day-long project where Kubrick shot Spartacus, which was cool, even though it's the film that made him want to leave the United States forever, the studio system. But so that was cool. The back lot was sort of our campus. So it was, the magic is still not gone for me to this day and never will. And so going to Edith Head and, finding garments and props from movies that you're obsessed with from the 30s and 40s is, I don't think the magic will ever be lost on that.
For sure. And as focused as you were on it, NIFA is way better than, a UCLA or USC or whatever, where you don't get to touch the equipment for the first year or two and all that.
I've heard that.
Undergrad normally takes a lot of patience, and then maybe only like the stars in a class get their hands on the equipment. Whereas you go to
that the
NIFA
case?
and you probably had your hands on the equipment the first week, I imagine? Or?
Yeah, I think it was pretty fast, and we were learning. We were on celluloid, so that was great to have a Panaflex in the class, and to the nerdy film school hazing is when you have your hands in a changing bag. For those who don't know, you have to change film. You have to put your hands into this like little tent bag that keeps the light out, and it's almost like a scientist with a petri dish. And you have to take the film out, put it in the magazine, put a new reel in the magazine, and then put your former film in the canister, close it, and then you can remove it all from the bag. And if you do it incorrectly, you will expose the film and destroy everything you shot on that reel. And so when you're learning to do that and your hands are in the bag, people, of course, come up and put gaff tape on your eyebrows and, and rip it off because you can't take your hands out. And so that's the very nerdy film school hazing that I remember. I mean, one would presume that if you took the step to go to film school, you've, taken steps prior to learn about a bit of writing, a bit of editing, a bit of film theory. And so you may not need that year, but I don't know, maybe they do something in that year that, is beneficial. Because I do think you should have a little bit of groundwork laid in terms of knowing a bit about movies and how they function, But
Right.
but you know what? Also, whenever a friend wants to learn an instrument, I say pick it up first and see what you can do without any previous knowledge, and then learn the rules so you can break them. And Orson Welles knew nothing when he made Citizen Kane, or very little. And, Greg Toland was like, I'm going to trust in you, and the crew's going to listen to you and all that stuff. And he broke the rules, which is why Citizen Kane changed cinema. So maybe I'm wrong with everything I said. Maybe you should get your hands on the equipment as early as possible.
Whether you get deep into film theory and understand cinema from that side, or whether you get hands-on and do some trial and error. But I mean, a person like yourself, you were studying film theory really early by seeing the kinds of films you were seeing and being an active viewer. So yeah. I'm sure you had. I'm sure you probably would have really enjoyed a highly theoretical film program, but it wasn't what you wanted to do. But you might have really, I always do think it's cool that some of the NYU guys like Spike Lee and Jim Jarmusch, like they'll still write a book. They'll write a book about film.
Oh yeah.
Like, because they're so deep into like the way they studied it. But
I don't think you ever lose that obsession for when it bites you. You get it for the rest of your life.
For sure. So you said first year you were here. Then did you go back to New York with?
I went
Nisha?
to New York for second year, which was cool because the city is your campus. You know what I mean? And so we had, on days off or weekends or whatever, people would be like banging on your room, like, let's go shoot something. And it was just like the whole city caused mayhem, and the police are the camp counselors. And it's just like, summer camp with your friends. So that was a very enjoyable aspect of it. I remember bits and pieces from it. I remember I did have some great teachers. I don't really remember anything they taught me, and it has nothing to do with them whatsoever. It just has to do with, I do think you learn so much more from watching movies. And, I was obsessed with, I think it's a shame nowadays we don't have so many DVD extras, because watching the making ofs and listening to the director's commentaries and all that kind of stuff, like that taught me so much more about framing and mise en scène and all that kind of stuff, and the intent behind something than any film class ever did. Maybe it's different for other people. Maybe a lot of people got a lot out of film classes, but I got it mostly out of movies.
Yeah. And you're making me think about how like Criterion Collection and stuff.
Yeah, man.
Like there was heavy analysis. Sometimes even like a film school professor would do. I saw a version of The Graduate that had a film professor's commentary throughout the film, and you just realize just how many things you're not noticing that affect the way the film strikes you. And yeah, now in the streaming world, like any extras, they're not really extras. They're just PR.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really do think it's a shame because like that taught me everything I know really, and I think the fact that DVDs are no longer as much of a thing as they used to be, but it's like film theory so important what you're talking about, but also like the behind the scenes, like my favorite behind the scenes, like in the 90s and prior, they would do all those BTS where it was to sell the movie and it would be like a couple shots of them actually shooting the movie, but it would mostly be people sitting in director's chairs with a key light and a fill and, they're getting interviewed. And I'm not super interested in that. I'm way more interested in like the actual, like if there was a BTS of just like a full day of making a movie that I'm obsessed with, you know what I mean? Like I just want to see the boring stuff. I want to see the nitty gritty. I want to see everything in between. And so that kind of stuff I think is really important, especially if you haven't worked on set before, to see how a set is actually run, because then you'll know technical aspects of what you're capable of in a day. Then you'll know how many shots can I actually get set up? How do I work quickly and efficiently? How do I wrangle all these people? You know what I mean? What's the best use of my time in a shooting day? Because you get very little of what you actually want when you're shooting. And I think seeing how a movie's made and how a set and a crew function can be a little bit more helpful sometimes. So then you can go and apply your more esoteric craft.
For sure. I assume that's stuff you learned. By the way, I'm going to jump back to New York and say
Please.
It must have been incredible to be there because
Oh, yeah.
pretty much every street in New York, it feels cinematic.
Can't turn a camera in a bad direction.
Yeah.
You just can't. You know what I mean? I remember shooting a project in Williamsburg with the Williamsburg Bridge in the background, and it's just like the sort of derelict nature of everything is I think what makes it beautiful, and I think that's why so many movies shot in downtown LA are gorgeous. Anything in like the heart of a city where the blacks are crushed and in the highlights on the buildings are slightly overexposed. I think that's gorgeous cinematography. It's like begging to be shot.
It is. The urban landscape can be beautiful.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Did you stay in New York a while, or?
I came back actually a little early to shoot my thesis, and then didn't get the money I needed for it. I had I'm obsessed with pre-planning, and so I had everything storyboarded, shot listed, scheduled out to a T. I had plan B, plan C. I had I was ready to go, and then begging, stealing, and borrowing for financing didn't come to fruition. And I remember working with my best friend's dad was a screenwriter, and he was helping me with the script, and we would have these egregiously long discussions on the phone. We'd have this back and forth via email. He was really helping me with it, and we finally got it to a good place. And then it was just after a while of trying to get the money I needed, I was I've got to move on,
I'm just going to say that's another indie film lesson is realizing you can have everything in line and then still not have the resources to do it. Yeah,
but it's different nowadays, because nowadays I would have, either borrowed a friend's camera, or, nowadays you have stuff like the Blackmagic.
I was going to say this was before
yeah,
film quality digital cameras were accessible.
Yeah, it must have. I mean, the 5D, I remember that made a massive splash. The red came out later, but and was astronomical.
Getting your hands on one wasn't easy.
Yeah, they didn't have a consumer brand, a consumer model at the time, and so it was prior to that. The 5D I think may have come out, but I couldn't afford it, or it was a little after that. I mean, I remember they were using the 5D on episodes of 24, which at the time was, if I'm not mistaken, maybe someone listening knows something I don't, but I think I remember reading many years ago that and it was $1 million an episode or something, which at the time was, very high for a TV show, and now is abysmal, right? Now it's 15 million an episode. But yeah, so I didn't have the ability to get my hands on one of those. And now, like when I made this, I had a face on the ceiling. I had friends who were like, you can borrow my Alexa, you can borrow my Red. And I said to them all, like, I would love to. That's so nice of you. Thank you so much. But I'm shooting in such a tight space. I'm going to shoot on a Blackmagic. I'm going to borrow somebody's Blackmagic. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, is a face on the ceiling, where does it come in your story? Is it soon after school, or after school you went, you graduated? Right, so you graduated and went to work.
I didn't go to work immediately. I was, focusing, I was living the life of a poor wannabe screenwriter, director, musician in LA. And
we have ignored the music part, but your whole life you were playing music?
I started playing piano at 4, not well by any stretch of the imagination. I started playing piano at 4 because my sister was taking voice lessons from this amazing woman who also taught piano. And so my mom was like, teach Robbie piano after you teach, Nicole voice lessons. And so I was taking piano, and one of my few regrets in life is that I wanted to stop, and I hate it. I wish I'd stuck with it. And I picked it up, years later when I was like 17 or 18, and I still play to this day. But so I played piano at 4, and I just it was Good King Wenceslas and all that stuff, and it was boring to me. And the teacher said I could, write my own thing. And so I wrote my own thing that she had like one of the older kids in the recital play. And so I think it was like 5 or 4 when I did that. And that was also a moment where I was like, if you make something, people will like it, or, people will play it, or something will happen. And so I think I got the I think most filmmakers, even the most auteurish, if that's a word, it's not, still want to impress people or want to make something that people like. I think that's the vast majority, at least. And so I think I got that there. But then I was like, piano's for nerds. I want to play guitar. You know what I mean? And I was 5. And so the piano teacher's brother played guitar. I don't think he was a guitar teacher, but he played guitar. And so he would come and teach me guitar. So I've been playing piano and guitar most of my life. And then especially in terms of scoring, which I obviously got into later, but still pretty young. You have to do the sort of John Lennon thing of give me a tuba and I'll make something out of it, So I try to play everything, jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing.
And as far as music goes, were you actually thinking music for film, or did you do the garage band thing too and play with friends? And
I was in like punk bands growing up, and I was, one of those kids. And so I was like, I'm going to be Pete Doherty when I grow up. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, I was, focused on that for a bit, and always focused on film. But I mean, sort of my whole life has been like, music and film fighting for my attention. I mean, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I was like writing screenplays, of course, but I was also like, I'm going to be a novelist. I'm going to be a serious novelist. You know what I mean? And I remember like sitting in Formosa Cafe, because that's where Hemingway would go, and I'd write my novel. So I'm glad I didn't go down that route, but I attempted. I think I wrote like a novel and a half that no one will ever see. It's always been, I'm in music mode or I'm in film mode, and then scoring sort of branches the two. But I still write, songs that are not pieces, I guess. It's like, I don't know how to delineate them, but it's like music with lyrics. And then I like classical music, so I write some of that, and then scoring music, which is sometimes similar to classical music, and everything in between. But I spend most of my time these days focusing far more on film and writing music for said film than the other stuff. But
right. So now today music is really serving the film needs in a way. But
to a degree. Because scoring stuff, with A Face on the Ceiling, I mentioned this when we spoke at the theater, how it was unlike music I'd ever made before, because if I still think you can do anything and everything with a string quartet and a piano. I think the possibilities are endless with that, but it just didn't feel like it fit this narrative, and so I went and was working with synthesizers and was working with all these weird sounds that I'd never worked with before, and that's why the score was, I think, took me longer than any other aspect, just because I would throw stuff away and I didn't like this and this is too loud and this is whatever, this is the wrong instrument. And so, I still love making classical music aside from that, because I think, string instruments and pianos are some of the most beautiful stuff humans have invented.
It is. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible to see played live, too.
Yeah,
it blows me away every time.
Yeah.
To see whether it's a quartet, like you said, or an orchestra, whatever size. It's amazing. But I want to add that, as long as you're bringing it up, is that the way you wrote the score for A Face on the Ceiling, I really love hearing that process you described, because in a way, Rob Campoy, director, turned to Rob Campoy, who wrote the score, and said, "Nah, do a score, make the score fit this material. Don't do your thing.
Yeah, you're wrong, dude." Yeah,
but the fact that you were able to do that, I think is really cool.
Oh, great, cool.
Thank you. Because you were like. Because a lot of people just love the smell of their own fart, right? So it'd be like, man, my score is perfect for this. Instead, you were like, no, I've got to try something else, something that...
I think I learned early on that, I go from, and I hope we all do, have moments where we're like, what I'm writing is great and this is righteous and this is going to be important one day and blah, blah, blah. And then the majority of the time we spend thinking, this is the worst thing ever. What am I doing? I'm going to waste everyone's time. I'm wasting my own time. You know what I mean? And so I remember, I took some UCLA extension courses for screenwriting. And I would always talk about that with other people in the class, about how I think it's part of your tool belt to have moments of self-doubt, because it's such a sort of lonely art form when you're writing, especially. It's anathema to that when you're shooting, but when you're writing and pre-planning, if you're a director doing a shot list without a DP and stuff like that, it's a lot. You have to sort of be self-referential, and you have to say you're wrong and say you're an idiot. And so those moments of self-doubt can be a good thing, and then the highs where you're like, fuck, man, I'm a genius and this is going to be the most important film ever made. Those moments are important too, but those should be probably more far and few between, at least for me. Well, I hope they remain far and few between.
Yeah. And what you're saying makes sense. And honestly, I would have a hard time trusting someone who never felt imposter syndrome. I even saw Taika Waititi the other day. I follow his Instagram. He might be the only famous person on my Instagram, but he said something like, he had a picture on a red carpet. He's like, boy, the imposter syndrome's really hitting me hard today.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
You got to respect it, You should have the confidence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, every once in a while you should say, man, am I on the right track?
Yeah.
So I get it.
Can I tell us a story about Taika Waititi?
Of course.
So my first, we're about to get here anyway, that I started working Grip and Electric. So I worked camera department, I worked Grip and Electric, and I remember, my first year or two, not getting paid most of the time, and it's like, you're getting experience.
Right, doing non-union stuff.
I'm always doing, if you're doing music videos and commercials, you're doing non-union stuff most of the time, which is, so they can work 19 hours and plus. And so I was always in that first year curious about doing a feature. I was like, I've never done a feature before, especially with Grip and Electric, because it's so physically taxing. I wonder if I could do that, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, depending on the film. And then sometimes 3 months, sometimes more. And so I remember being brought on to this, indie film. It was a comedy, but they had all these amazing comedians in it. So every day on the call sheet, there would be these amazing people that I was so excited to see. And this was, I don't know how many years ago, but Taika Waititi was in it. And so I was so excited. He was playing a cult leader, but like he had died. So he was playing like this, how they envisioned this cult leader, like a manifestation. He was like a ghost. And so he came in for a couple days to shoot this, and we had shot in a house, incidentally 3 blocks from where I live today. But so this house that's like owned by Film LA, we had like tenanted it out. We'd shot there for most of the movie, and then we built some of the stuff on a soundstage. And so we built the bathroom was one of the things, because apparently the cult leader in this movie had killed himself in the bathroom of this house. This young couple moves in, and then all these people want to join the cult by going and killing themselves in the bathroom of this house. That's the conceit of the movie. Brilliant idea. I don't know whatever happened in this movie, but so Taika Waititi was in it, and he comes to do his like 1 or 2 days, and I had no idea who he was, and someone was like, "Oh, dude, he's gonna do the new Thor movie. He's gonna direct it." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I, obviously have not long after saw Boy and saw, his short film I saw all his movies. Absolutely incredible. Boy is one of the most rewatchable movies in history, I think. And so he came in, and, in Grip and Electric, we have a lot of very tall ladders. So while they were shooting, I was at the top of a 12-step looking over the set of the bathroom just so I could see him perform, because I found out instantly he's one of the funniest human beings like on planet Earth. And the director of this movie was smart enough to let most, if not all, of the actors, because they were comedians, ad-lib. And so Taika Waititi was ad-libbing all this stuff, and I was like shaking the wall of the set because I was like trying to stifle my laughter so much. And the camera operator was like shaking the because he was like so many I forget now specifics of what he said, but the guy's a comedic genius, and that's my first movie. And so
that's the first feature you worked on.
That was the first feature
after cutting your teeth on
music videos, commercials, interviews, everything and anything,
And you started a camera department and shifted to Grip Electric? Or?
I started in Grip and Electric, and then lied my way into camera department, and then went back and forth. I was asked a couple years after film school, I was focused on being a director. I was, living down and out now. But I, got asked to do a night shoot for a friend's AFI thesis in Grip and Electric. They just needed extra hands. I had completely forgotten everything about, Grip and Electric. I didn't know how to work anything. And she was like, "That's fine. We just need extra hands." So it was a night shoot. It was the last shoot, the last day of their thesis. So they were all, exhausted, down and out. They picked me up, and, I'm sitting in the back of this like Honda Civic driving out to the middle of nowhere. They were shooting in the desert, like an hour and a half outside of LA. And it was like cold and damp and pouring rain, and I loved every minute of it. You know what I mean? They had like the fire department there because we had like pyrotechnics, and they had all this stuff. And everyone else on the crew was like, "Why are you so excited? Like, we're exhausted. Like, it's a night shoot." And I was like, "This is so cool." And so then someone from that shoot was like, "You have a good attitude, and we'll probably work for free. Come work on this movie for me," and so on and so forth. And that's sort of how it was for many. That's how it's been forever. And then I remember someone asking me if I work in camera department. So I said, "Of course I do," which I did not. And if I remember correctly, and if you can't tell by now, my memory's always on the precipice. But if I remember correctly, it was for a Hulu pilot that never aired, and this was years ago. But so they said, "Have you ever worked camera department?" I lied and said yes. They brought me on. I was a second AC, which means you just set up cases in an organized fashion. You bring magazines or batteries, or you run the slate, you take notes, which was the absolute bane of my existence, because it's like they never give you enough time to take notes, and you try to take them meticulously, and then they only ever ask for specifics from your notes on the one thing that you like legitimately didn't have time to get anything down. That's the only time the DP will be like, what's that? Like, I'm so sorry, please don't fire me. And so we shot this thing, and we were shooting on film, which was great. But there's like 20 hard cases. They're all heavier than like almost anything we use in G&E, and you don't have a 4-in-4, and they're all containing things that could put a kid through college, price wise. And so you just like arrange them in an organized fashion. So that was a great experience. It was really great. I don't know whatever happened to that, if it aired or not. But it was a great story, great people. And so, yeah, working on these things, you learn so much. I remember the director on that, I forget her name, but she learned every extra's name from cue cards. The night before, we had a big sequence with like 20 or 40 extras or something. And it was a funeral scene. And she learned every extra's name so she could speak to them individually, and I asked her like why doesn't that take a lot of time? And she said, even though they're maybe in the background of the frame, if you engage on a personal level with everyone who's especially who's going to be in front of a camera, you will get a better performance out of them. And that's not out of a manipulative tactic, that's out of being a human. You know what I mean?
It's very practical, and I love hearing that, because for a little while there, I think people thought you had to be the biggest asshole in the world to snap everyone in line, but it's the opposite.
The times are slowly changing with that, and I've sort of like watched them change over the years.
Yeah, you probably saw some. I think it's fair to use the term Joss Whedon Juniors and this and that, like people who came up with abusive department heads or abusive directors and just figured that was the right way.
I came up with abusive department heads, when I was working Grip, and that's why I think the behavior like continues on. But I remember, a film set for the most part, at least in my experience, does have like severely abusive behavior, and it's slowly changing. But
a director like her could possibly, top down, create a different culture.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, the fact that it's like people who behave in that fashion seem unaware that people talk. You know what I mean? Like crews are talking. Like, I mean, but we still need to pay our rent. So quite often, but when you're young and green, I'm talking like I'm I've been doing this forever. But when you're younger than I was now, and when you're green, you think, if I step out of line, this, person on these tertiary outskirts of the quote unquote industry will have some type of sway and will get me blacklisted and blah, blah. And that's just not true. They're the ones who are doing the incorrect thing. They're the ones in the wrong here. And so I remember working for some, very, very abusive people who were like, you could tell that they got off on screaming at people, that was like, some deep-seated thing. And most of the grips are standing there like, dude, what's your problem? Like, it's not going to make any, like, no one works better when they're in fear. You know what I mean? With that being said, we're working with dangerous equipment that could kill people if done incorrectly. If someone does it incorrectly, it's likely not intentional. And so to yell at that person won't help them to remember the next time, because then they'll be afraid the next time, and then they'll be like, oh my God, was it the right side or left side? Oh my God, I don't know which tool, whatever. And so when I started key gripping instead of gripping, which is department head for that side, and started gaffing, I don't think I've ever yelled at someone, and I've and I would hope that I wouldn't anyway, but it was also because of working for these people that I was like, Jesus, man, I would never, ever, ever want to come off as they came off. And so, yeah, I mean, I've had people like severely fuck up, and I've said, okay, this is not how you do it. You do it like this, or if someone keeps fucking up, you don't call them back on the next job,
Yeah, it becomes a teaching moment instead of a screaming moment.
Screaming
Because at
is
least
for
that
you,
way,
not for them.
they'll do it
Yeah.
right next time. Screaming
Yeah.
at them, like you said, like it doesn't improve performance.
And it's like, so many of the shoots I went on when I was green, a lot of them you sort of sometimes have to lie and say you're not. And then when someone asks you for something and you don't know what it is, which usually you don't, because it's all, got these like weird fucking monikers. They're all like nicknames. You have no idea, like, a C-47, for instance, or, now there's some we're not allowed to use anymore. But so like C-47, for instance, if someone doesn't know what that is, or, even when it's not a nickname, when someone asks for a Mayfer, but you're green, or a Cardi and you're green, or a platypus and you're green, and so you run to the cart or to the truck and you try to look it up, and then you inevitably can't find it because there's not enough online about grip and electric, and so you turn to another guy and you go, hey dude, what's that thing that he asked for, what's this? And hopefully they know and tell you, so the boss or the department head is none the wiser. But I was on many sets when I started out, and I was like, hey, I'm green, I'm not getting paid for this, or even if you are, like, I just want to let you know that. And most of the time, people like to teach people things. You know what I mean? Most of the time, it'll even in a set environment where you don't have any time. You know what I mean? You like so then you should have shelled out for someone better. Like if you're paying someone $250 for a 13-hour day.
And it's just logical that the person who says, hey, I don't understand what you just said, can you just tell me what to go get and I'll get it?
Happily.
They would appreciate that way more than faking it and doing the wrong thing. Like, like you're allowing for the opportunity to do it right.
Yeah. No, and so, we started talking about this because the times are changing, and I've seen that. I've seen that it's becoming a far less environment where people are, enacting their childhood traumas in a violent way to other people, or whatever the inception of that is, what I mean?
And like you said, you've come up through the system, and now you've become a department head and a key grip, and you are not handling yourself. You are part of the improvement, is what I'm trying to say. I
hope I'm a nice person anyway. I try to be like extra nice on set, especially to. I also love, I've done it for a long time and I'm super jaded. I'd be the worst person on your set. No, I wouldn't be the worst person, but like, I'm there to, like most crew who've done it a while, there to, sort of make my rent and go home. And that's why like all crew is like, when's lunch, what's for lunch, and what time do we wrap? You know what I mean? But there's still magic, sure, if I work on a narrative, but I do mostly music videos and commercials, which isn't necessarily something I'm super passionate about or interested in. And so, a lot of it's like, I've set up enough stereotubes flashing neon pink that are in the frame that I do my job and I go for some of them. And then sometimes it'll be like, they want some natural motivated lighting. And I'm like, thank you so much. Happily. What, are we going to do muted grays? Love it. Thank you.
Well, and a cool thing, I assume it's good, these shorter form things, music videos and commercials and things that you get in and out and the job's done, and then you can focus on your own creativity.
100%.
Yeah.
I have
because Lord knows if you were on a 6-month shoot for a major motion picture, you're going to be so drained you're not gonna put pen to paper or finger to keyboard for until 3 months after you recover.
I was about to start a movie recently, and it was like comical how much it kept pushing. And like each week they were like, we're starting Monday, and we'd like call out of other jobs, blah blah. And then finally it was like, okay, it's now indefinite, how long we're pushing it. And I was like, thank God. Like, even though it's good to have a steady job, like, that's not my primary focus. And I'm doing 3-day gigs, which is what, like, most commercials or music videos would be. I mean, music videos nowadays are sometimes 1 day, because the artist flies in and is out of there. Most artists, like, don't want to be there for a music video because someone explained it to me a while ago, like, they're not really getting paid or something. There's so much more to it that I don't fully understand, but that's why most artists are like, get me in, get me out. Whatever, tell me where to stand, I want to go home. Like,
right, just another obligation that the record company puts on them.
I mean,
and they're not getting paid. In theory, they are getting paid to do it.
But, of course, yeah.
But
I mean, if you're being pulled in that many directions on a minute-by-minute basis, it's sort of like, tell me where to stand and I want to leave.
It's funny because I just watched the Billie Eilish David Letterman interview on Netflix, and she's the director of every music video, so she's deep into it, and she cares. She's making a short film every time.
Yeah.
But I guess she's just a cooler person than some other artists, music artists.
I've pre-lit one of her shows. I didn't work on it. Everyone I've worked with who've worked with her said she's great.
Yeah,
so
nice.
She's amazing. Yeah.
All right, so did we get to a face on the ceiling with all the? Were there other shorts? Were there other shorts? During this period of being on crew and doing stuff in your spare time on the weekends?
Yeah, I was shooting a lot that, likely won't see the light of day. I mean, so many of my friends who make films a lot, make shorts and put them in festivals. They were like, Rob, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just make it, just make it, just make it. And so that is one of the reasons why I made A Face on the Ceiling, was because I was like, I mean, look, dude, you're never going to get the, 200 million you want for your 5-minute short. So, you know what I mean? So, like, you're never going to get all the things that you want and need. And
I mean, it's almost dating back to your thesis project story.
Yeah.
of setting your own demands too high for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I want everything to be as, I think everyone sort of wants it to be as much in your head as it can be. You enact what's in your head as
what's in your mind ends up on the screen,
which for the record never happens. You know what I mean? Like, and you have to live with that. I think that's why director's hair goes gray before everyone else's. But so like that's something I was just like, give in. You have ostensibly all the time you want to make your shot list and to do your storyboard, which is like, one of my favorite aspects of the whole thing. And because, no one's hounding you for it. You can make it in your own time, but do something simple that you can get done. And, I had like, it was just Tess and I, and it was just me. And so,
yeah, I mean, it was lockdown, right? And
it was past lockdown, actually. I think it was right past lockdown. Yeah, because we had our friend Sarah come by just because we needed someone to move the thing over the window to block out the sun for that part. And that was the other thing is like, we just wanted to do something where we could make it entirely ourselves. I had so many friends who were like, let me know when you're doing a short and I'll come for free. And I was like, I don't need anyone.
Don't need it.
You know what I mean? We're not doing egregious lighting setups. I need to be super fast because I like a lot of camera work. Everything's dependent upon story. That's a huge thing that I believe in. And so for certain things, you can do it all in a oneer, and that's great. For certain things, you can do it handheld, and that's great. If I have anything I prefer, I like things that are on, dolly, quote unquote, slider when you don't have a dolly, and sticks and like, creating the mise en scène and creating the perfect camera work. Like that's half the fun for me is coming up with those shots and camera movements and what they mean and what they're going to tell us. So, I needed to be super fast to get all those setups in 2 days that we were going to shoot it. And so it was a lot like we could have shot 3 days. It was a lot about like giving ourselves these parameters. And I remember, the light changes drastically in the rooftop. sequence at the end. And I remember Tess saying, like, we can shoot it tomorrow. Like, we can shoot it another day. And I was like, no, we are getting everything in. These are we only have this afternoon.
Right. So you had an imaginary executive producer.
100%.
Just completely laying down the law for you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to do it the other way, because then you might never finish.
You might never finish. And also, like, what are making short films if not a testing ground, a proving ground for when you do have executives hounding you, for when you do have time constraints, when you can't actually come back to the location another day. And so and that's another reason why I wanted to do everything alone, even things I have no interest in, is that, like, I'll be able to communicate better with someone there's, one little thing of VFX in there that I was like trying to do myself, and I finally gave it to my best friend, but he's like showing me how to do it all. And like, to be able to communicate with a VFX artist better, to be able to communicate with a colorist better. I mean, I love coloring. I love color grading, but like, I likely will not direct, score, color grade, you know what I mean? And if I'm making a feature, so to be able to communicate with a colorist better, and all that stuff, I think is better if I utilize making a short film as a proving ground to test myself and see. And I told you how the one aspect that I abhorred amongst everything was the fucking poster. Like, of all the software that, like, I've taught my old fuddy-duddy brain to learn, from music recording to editing to color, all that stuff, for some reason, Photoshop, I just won't compute. Like, the basics will compute, of course, but like when it gets into, a lot heavier stuff that is required for the poster I wanted that I saw in my head, I watched so many tutorials and finally was like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, this is good enough. This is a short. I have more things to do and to make. Like, you got to.
I remember discussing the poster. Yeah.
And I still hate it. And I was so many times was like, go on Fiverr, hire someone. And I was like, you could do all that, sure. But this is also like one short film. You're going to make more. Go spend that time that you would work on the poster or whatever, spend that making your next short.
Funny aside, 4 houses down on this street is a married couple with a nice house, and they are both professional movie poster graphic designers.
See, man, you
and
should tell me.
there was last Christmas there was a street party and they found out I ran Sherman Oaks Film Festival, and I found out they made movie posters because I just know them as the guy who walks the massive dog Molly, who's totally cute to pet. And I said, hey, wait a minute. Why don't you, next Sherman Oaks Film Festival 2022, you and your wife want to be judges of posters, and you'll pick best poster? And he said, I'd love to. So
great.
That will be an award next year.
Mine will not be in contention. Mine will not be running.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, so you made the film. And
made the film
right after things opened up, and you just hit the festival circuit with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't been able to tell from all the scripts that I've talked about writing, that like I never send anything out. I keep everything close to the vest, which makes no sense. And the whole point of making this stuff is to put it out there. I mean, screenplay is different because you have to get it made. But so with this, I was like, yeah, I want to send it to everyone and their mother. And so I'd never really gone through the festival circuit. I'd never done anything like that. And so I sent it to anywhere and everywhere. And I, got in and won it sort of more places than I expected. Also because I think I told you this at the festival, is that those 2 days were originally meant to be just a test. Like those weren't meant to be the shoot days.
Right. Yeah. You were just testing, and
I was like, we have this opportunity because I, want to make everything as perfect as possible, is how I see it in my head. We have this opportunity that, you'd never get when making a movie, to shoot everything, make sure all the shots look good, make sure that everything works, make sure it's all possible. And so that was the intent. I borrowed all the equipment from a friend of mine, and we had a few lights, and so we shot it. And then it was like midway through day one that I was like, I mean, this is pretty good. We dressed the set. We like, what else need be done? You know what I mean?
Right. If you
like,
came back and did it over, it would just feel redundant.
It would be entirely redundant. So yeah. So it was a test that ended up doing pretty well.
And actually, I didn't. This question was on the tip of my tongue, and I never jumped in with it. Which is, was there something? Was it the goal to shoot something like at home, like because you write a lot? So was there something about this idea that said, "Hey, shoot me"? Because you make it sound like you've got a nice little library of unshot.
Yeah,
scripts.
it was shooting something that was simple because I'm so much of like, I want it to be perfect, which I think I'm getting better with. I think I'm shedding my, petulant armor of wanting everything to be perfect because it never will be, and it's such a complete waste of time, to try to do that. But so this is the simplest of the ideas. Let's do this. It's at home. It's one person. It's the person who I live with. My girlfriend is in it. And so it was like, this is super feasible. Let's do this first. And then it'll open the floodgates. You know what I mean? That's what I was starting to say before, is so many of my friends had said to me, like, just make stuff, get it out there. And I was always like, it has to be perfect. And they're just like, do a scene, do anything. And I was like, one day. And so that's one of the reasons why we started with this. But also, like, I spend most of my time writing features because that's what interests me. I like getting lost in something for months at a time. And, when I'm on set, like now I bring my iPad and, when they're rolling, unless there's something to pre-light, there's not a whole lot to do. So I bring my iPad and I write on set. I write, as best as I can when I get off, even though it's 13 hours plus and I'm exhausted, you know what I mean? On weekends, on days off. And so, and I like call out of a lot of jobs, I decline a lot of jobs so I can focus on writing. So I spend most of my time writing features, not shorts. And so I have a ton of short ideas that I've never written that I, eventually will, because now I've got my own camera, now I've got my own equipment, I've got my own little film studio, and so now I'll do more. But at the time, it was like, this is the only thing feasible to us because I have to borrow the equipment, I have to get everyone there at a specific time and a specific day, and it was like right after COVID. So yeah, that's why we did it this way.
And I believe a friend used the term "open the floodgates." Has it opened the floodgates now that you've got this film? By the way, I have to pimp the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. I have it here that we did your world premiere.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool. I know it's just the luck of timing, but hey, proud to have done it.
I'm proud to be in it. I mean, proud to have. The Sherman Oaks Film Festival was, the first festival I'd ever been to. The first time I'd seen my movie on a big screen. It was, I invited one of my closest friends, or a couple people came, and Tess and I did the Q&A. It was an amazing experience.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
Oh yeah, we were all very excited.
So now, and I assume you did some others and had a good run. So are you itching to make the next one?
I am making the next one. Yeah, it's. I was shortlisting before I came here today. I'm almost.
By the way, I want to throw a compliment to Tess too. I will add that
amazing
that she has a presence on screen.
I like
that it would have been really hard for you to find if you didn't have her in your back pocket. Happen to be together, and if you were casting, you might not have found someone who. Just the camera, some people on camera, there's something.
She's got it, man.
Yeah.
She's got it. I really lucked out. I am going to cast her in everything. if she'll be in everything, if I'll be lucky enough.
Yeah, if you can manage to book her.
Exactly. I think she's the next Julia Roberts. I think she's amazing. She's got like the most expressive face in the world. She's one of the nicest people. She's amazing to work with, and she just does everything exactly how you see it in your head. And we've been talking this whole time about how like it's near impossible to get anything you see in your head exactly how you see it on camera, and she'll do that in like take one. But what was great is like I like the notion of doing a lot of takes, or not a lot. Like I don't think 15 takes is a lot. But what I found with doing this is like at take 10, even though I thought I had the whole thing in my head, I didn't. Because it like take 5, take 6, and I get that everything's dependent upon story, and there are some movies that are better when they're handheld with one take, and sure, all that kind of stuff. But for certain movies, when it is better to try to do it a bunch of times and get as much as you can out of the actors. But like take 10, she'd do something that I was like, oh my god, that's so much better. Run with that. And it could be something small, like just something in her face, or it could be something large, like when she's walking around the bed, she like on take 10, I think she added this intentionally. She like quote unquote stubs her toe and like goes, ow, and like hops on a foot for a few feet. And like, I mean, that may be a small thing. That's my favorite thing in the movie. You know what I mean? Like that's my favorite bit is like that. She like, and so once I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. Let's do that.
But it's a vibrant moment that makes it look natural and unplanned.
I mean, the minutia is what goes a long way.
And based upon the size of your crew, when you saw Take 10 had the special thing in it, then did you have to write down a note? Did you have to note for the editor, who was you, like make sure you go to Take 10 for this? Or
I mean, it's a 7.5 minute film. I think I committed to memory. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
But if it were a feature, I would definitely say to the scriptie.
For sure.
Note that.
All right, so you were already working on shot list for a feature.
Yeah.
Or next short.
This is going to be a short. We're going to shoot it in Palm Springs. I actually wrote it years ago when I was living in this like apartment that would be perfect for it. So I'd like, and this is another case where like I didn't have all the equipment necessary, and I didn't know as many people who had Arri Alexas they were willing to lend me for free. And I was like, this film shouldn't be shot on an iPhone. Like it's all about like, the sort of hyper stylized nature of it. And so I like shelved it for a long time, and then after doing A Face on the Ceiling, floodgates opening, I was like, well, fuck it, man, let's go do this one, and let's change it for this location I have in Palm Springs. And so I'm basically done with the shot list as of today. I'm going to start my scheduling process to make sure every shot can be attained in too short a period of time, intentionally, to to see if we can make it work. And then I'm going to bring everyone out to Palm Springs, and we're going to do it.
And you have a specialized skill set to do that to yourself too, right? You clearly have so much knowledge of the nuts and bolts compared to people who don't crew much or don't. Yeah, because
it helps a lot.
Because you can make yourself get more done in a single day than, because you're not asking other people to make it happen. You're making it happen.
I'm working camera department and lighting is so helpful in many respects, but especially in terms of knowing how long things take. I think every producer, it would behoove themselves to learn specifically about what's required for lighting. You don't need to know every term. You don't need to know what a Mayfair is, you know what I mean? But to know what's required for what the DP and director have decided they want for that shot, for your commercial, music video, narrative, whatever the fuck it is, I think that's so beyond helpful. And most producers I've worked with don't, and I've worked hundreds of shoots, and so many of them are like, why isn't this happening faster? And it's like, we're working literally as fast as we can. It's not happening faster because what we've been asked to do by the boss, it takes X amount of time to achieve.
Yeah, if you're lucky, I guess the unlucky thing is they tend to just think in terms of pages per day. It's like, well, we should be able to get this many pages per day done. It's like,
which is fine.
It totally varies.
It's that's fine if you want to look at it that way, but base your pages per day on how long a setup takes, and how many
setups and how many performers, and is it dialogue, is it action? Because 5 pages of dialogue is a breeze.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's slow in the mornings. You know what I mean? Like, that's true across the board. So, like, the first shot, is never, very seldom is it when it's scheduled on anything I've ever worked on, from the super professional stuff to the low budget stuff. And so people should just be cognizant of the fact that humans are pretty slow at 6 a.m. When they had to get up at 5 and get ready and drive there, and they're like, trying to get the hot oatmeal that you've blessed us with, you know what I mean? Like, thank you so much. So like the first shot will always take a long time, but then like when we move to our next setup, if that's in a separate location house where we need to turn all the lights around, like that shit takes time. So I schedule all that in because I'm trying to get so many different, for 2 days, and for doing 15 takes a setup, for a face on the ceiling, we were like on crack every day. We were like, go, 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 go. No stopping, no break. 30-minute lunch, if that. You know what I mean? Like, we are on and 12-and-a-half-hour day. You know what I mean? Yeah. To a T. That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, or you can be fun with it and you'll get a different result and it'll be still good if that's the vibe you're going for. Like, I think it's fun rushing on set. Like, I hate when there's downtime on set. You know what I mean? Writing a screenplay, sure, on set, but it's never that good as when I'm writing at home. So I prefer when there's stuff to do on set. It makes the day go by faster. It's more fun. It's more exciting.
For sure. Oh, glad. Do you want to say the name of the thing you're about to shoot, or? It's
called The Guest Bedroom. Like these titles that are, I mean, because to me, even though Face on the Ceiling won the horror, to me it's like satire. Like, it's not really horror. I guess it is.
Yeah, I mean, you submitted as horror.
I've submitted a horror a couple other places because I think it does fit into, square peg in a round hole as close as
I
it
mean,
can.
the word drama wouldn't fit. The word, maybe thriller.
I put thriller on a couple.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like a satirical thriller.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily laugh out loud. That's not the intent of it. But it's like sort of, poking fun at the genre, I guess. And so I think, the sort of on-the-nose titles are somewhat comedic, at least to me, somewhat satirical. So like A Face on the Ceiling, and I have a feature I wrote called A Murder in the Town of Hayworth. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a funny title to me. I have The Stack Man. Like, those are funny titles. So if the title makes sense. So it's called The Guest Bedroom, and it's a murderous, jealous love story. And
not jokingly, I'm going to point out that we are sitting in a guest bedroom.
That very true. Very true.
The Discover Indie Film headquarters podcast studio is in fact a guest bedroom with statues of naked men climbing the walls.
Oh my God, I missed that. That's pretty brilliant.
What are you going to do?
That's great.
Anything else you want to mention before we wrap it up?
I think that's sort of it. We covered the entirety of my life in an hour.
Well, no, it wasn't as a recent guest pointed out to me. It wasn't the full Howard Stern, but it was close. Like we could go deeper, but
that's we could do many hours.
Yeah.
For all our lives.
And then we'd have to bring in your mom and Tess and just interview everyone about you and just really
fucking love that. They would love that so much.
I mean, you could have done it together. It's always an option, but
we will come. I mean, she's not in this one because this one is with a gay couple. And then I have a longer short that I'm making after that called Murderpedia, or at least, I mean, all these are working titles, but as of now. And so that longer short is going to be starring Tess, hopefully. Unless she, realizes that I'm, not a great boyfriend and she leaves me before then, which I hope she doesn't.
I hope she doesn't too.
For the movie, not for, you gotta stay together for the movie.
So, or she could get booked on such a big show that she can't squeeze you in, but you could always get a couple days or something out of her.
That could very well happen. This one is, I I forget how long how many pages the script is, but this would, and knowing how many setups I like to do, it would take This would be a substantial period of time. Like A Face on the Ceiling was 2 days. I'm going to try to do the guest bedroom in 3 or 4. And then this one will be like, I haven't shot listed yet, but it seems from the script, it's a lot of locations. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of stuff. So that one's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe a month.
A month. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. So then you'll have to get scheduling with Tess.
I know.
What are you going to do?
I know. I've got to get shot.
You got an in though. You've got an in, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to name website something for people to check out?
As I said to you before, I'm sort of an old fuddy-duddy when it comes to social media, but I do go see Face on the Ceiling. It's on Vimeo if you type in A Face on the Ceiling. Also, check out the trailer. I think those are the only 2 things up on Vimeo. So the trailer's up there, and the song on the trailer is a song that I'd written a while ago, not for A Face on the Ceiling, and then was going to write something for the trailer, and I was like, that's perfect for it. I'll use that. So if you like that song, go to, I think if you type in Rob James, my middle name, on, not SoundCloud, on Bandcamp. There it is. So if you type in Rob James on Bandcamp, it should come up, and there may be a link to it. So if you want to hear the full song and a couple other score classical pieces.
Yeah, you do kind of, not to pressure you, but you do kind of have to do.
I know.
Like even just a 1-page website kind of deal that's just got a link tree so people can. I assume if they search Rob Campoy on Vimeo, then they'll get the 2 things up. Or
I believe so.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, you kind of do need that digital hub.
Sit in my dark room and write screenplays.
Of course you can.
And sit on dark sound stages. And no, you're entirely correct, and I'm fully cognizant of that. And I will likely succumb one day. I mean, I do have Instagrams. I just never checked them. I have like an Instagram for one music project, and then another one, and then for classical, and then for this, and then for that. And I like posted 2 things and was like, I hate this. I mean, during the pandemic, I love to cook. It's one of my favorite things to do as a hobby, that I would never want to do professionally because of my friends who have done it and say, don't ever do it. But so I started a cooking Instagram. And so, but I knew nothing about Instagram. So I was like, man, this is going to blow up. It did not, because everyone and their mother has a cooking Instagram. And so I was posting this stuff, like Tess was helping to arrange it and set up. I was taking these overheads, I was lighting them, and I just kept posting, and no one kept liking them. And I was sick of eating cold food by the time we're done taking the photo. So I was burned. I was burned by the social media.
As I told you, I share your feelings about social media. I do have it, but amusingly, people might expect film shit on there, but actually my Instagram is 100% my fruit and vegetable garden, and our guinea pig, and the occasional piece of fruit that I've half eaten because it's just so beautiful. But yeah, I'm just into gardening and I love this cute little furry guy. So
I love that. I think people want a human connection on social media, which is like maybe the one saving grace of it.
Yeah, I'm not flexing. Although
I'm not flexing on my fruit.
It is, but it is a flex when you got an apple tree that you planted yourself with like 20 apples on it. And you're just like, check that shit out.
I mean, I would love an apple tree. I'd love any tree in my apartment in Hollywood. I would love any flora and fauna or foliage.
Right. All right, cool. Well, we will wrap it up, I think. So you know how to look up some of Rob's stuff. And of course, if you go to Amazon Prime Video, search for Discover Indie Film, check out A Face on the Ceiling in Season 6. I will add that if you're listening to us still, like and subscribe and be nice. I don't think people write bad reviews of podcasts per se, but it doesn't kill you to take 3 minutes out of your day and write a nice one.
Thank you so much.
What can I say, people?
Thanks for listening.
And if you watch the TV series, please give that 5 stars on Amazon. Say, I love this series, and Face on the Ceiling was the highlight of Season 6, whatever you want to say. But bottom line is, be kind, because I don't think we've been hit by a troll yet, but it always breaks my heart when there's an indie film I love, and I will bother to rent it so that I can review it on Amazon. And then there'll be like a review from someone who should have never watched it in the first place. It wasn't for them. They're looking for a Marvel film and they're watching like some self-finance indie and they say, this film was cheap. And it's like, motherfucker, remove that review. Like you just should not have rented this film. Fuck you. So anyway.
Sorry I didn't have $100K for my short film, buddy.
That's my pitch for like, subscribe, review, and be kind. So if you're interested in that TV series and this podcast that gave birth to it, the website, because I manage the website, is discoverindiefilm.com, and the social media is at DIFwins. Rob and I talked about Sherman Oaks Film Festival, ShermanOaksFF.com. It's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And we hold that sucker every November, which means right now, as we sit at the end of July, boy, I got a lot of films to watch. And every June, we have Film Invasion Los Angeles, which you can learn more about at filminvasionla.com, and it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. For shits and giggles, I will mention, because I'm glutton for punishment, it's not a festival, but I could not resist starting THC Cinema, which was a movie night at the same theater we hold the Sherman Oaks Film Festival on April 20th, if you could believe that. On 4/20, we sat together and watched a bunch of films that were great to watch high. Most of them I'd never seen high till that night, but I did enjoy some edibles and then watch these movies. And I got to tell you, I might have lost money on it. I definitely lost money on it, but it was kind of worth it just to sit in the theater with 60 other people, knowing that we're all stoned together watching kick-ass short films that are either visually insane or super hilarious. So, look, I've just talked about THC Cinema longer than the film festivals, which is totally wrong.
I don't know, man. It sounds pretty interesting.
It's a fun concept. So
it's a brilliant concept.
I couldn't help it. All right, so thank you, Rob Campoy, for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, guys.